My mom secretly tried to put my newborn up for adoption because she thought my baby would steal attention from my sister's wedding. So I got the law involved and now she's convicted. My sister is getting married at the end of this year, and I gave birth to my son about 3 weeks ago. Everyone was happy about this, except for my mother, and I wasn't even surprised because, to her, nothing is more important than her darling baby, and that happens to be my little sister. I found out I was pregnant a while ago, and my sister got engaged to her boyfriend of 3 years when I was 6 months pregnant. Anyone who understands basic math would know that by the time my sister got married, I would have already given birth to the baby. It would have been one thing if my sister was the kind of person who wanted a small wedding and would plan it quickly, but she wanted an elaborate and grand wedding, which obviously takes a lot of time, and she and her fiancé had been quite clear about that from the beginning. Even then, a couple of weeks after their engagement, my mom showed up at my house looking all worried and told me she wanted me to do something about my pregnancy because she didn't want me to upset my sister. My sister and I are not close in the slightest. She's a spoiled brat, and ever since my father passed away a couple of years ago, we have had no contact. The only reason I stayed in touch with my mom after my dad's passing was that I promised him I would take care of her because he didn't think my sister would be up to the task. She was just not responsible enough. Even though my sister had always been my mom's favorite, I had tried my best to maintain a relationship with her until recently, when she showed up at my house to tell me that my sister was engaged and getting married. I thought she had just come over to share the good news, but she went on to say that since I was giving birth the same year my sister was getting married, it would steal her limelight because, apparently, a pregnancy is a bigger milestone than a wedding. I don't even understand what that was about, and I told her she was being paranoid unnecessarily. First of all, it's not like people would skip her wedding because I had a baby or whatever, and I wasn't even going to be invited to her wedding since I wasn't even invited to mine. We're not friends, so there was no way I could overshadow her. I wouldn't even be there. She or my mom had nothing to worry about, and I'm not a celebrity, so I was pretty sure that even at her wedding, nobody would be talking about me or my baby. I thought these were all valid points, but my mother told me that I needed to hide my pregnancy and my baby from everyone in the family and all our common friends because she didn't want me to steal my sister's limelight. I thought that was crazy, and I got into a huge fight with her, after which I didn't speak to her anymore. I felt bad about breaking my promise to my father, but there was no other option for me because she was obviously acting insane, and I was already pregnant and quite irritable. I just couldn't handle her idiotic statements. So, she hasn't been there for anything since then. It's just been me, my husband, and his family taking care of the baby ever since he was born. My mother wasn't even there for the birth of the child. My husband had called her that day, but she refused to show up because she was out with my sister. I'm pretty sure that even if she hadn't been out with her, she still wouldn't have shown up because I'm just not a priority for her. And that's the bitter truth. If she could abandon her own daughter in our relationship because she thought I was stealing the limelight from my sister just by giving birth, then I had nothing to say to her. That a few days ago, I was going through some old family documents, and I found something that made me really angry. I didn't want to believe it at first, but there it was in black and white. My mom had secretly been trying to put my baby up for adoption without my knowledge. I was stunned. The paperwork was clear, and the lawyer's notes confirmed that my mom had been in contact with an adoption agency for months, trying to arrange a situation where my son would be taken away. I had no idea she had gone so far behind my back, and it made me sick to my stomach. At first, I thought this was some kind of mistake, but as I dug deeper, I realized she had been planning this for a long time. She had even gone as far as contacting a private adoption lawyer, explaining that she didn't think I could handle being a mother and that my baby would ruin her precious daughter's wedding. She was offering to pay for the adoption fees just to make sure I wouldn't have to raise my child. When I found all of this, I was beyond furious. I had never felt so betrayed in my life. This wasn't just a simple disagreement between mother and daughter, it was a complete betrayal of the worst kind. She had taken it to the point of involving legal matters behind my back, trying to erase my son from my life before I even had a chance to bond with him. I couldn't just let that go. I knew I had to act, so I reached out to a lawyer myself. I filed a complaint, and as it turned out, my mom's actions weren't just cruel, they were illegal. What she did was attempt to illegally arrange for my baby to be adopted, which is a serious offense. With the help of my lawyer, we were able to build a case and present the evidence to the authorities. The adoption agency was notified, and they immediately dropped her as a client, while my mom was officially charged with attempting to arrange an illegal adoption. When the news broke, my mom tried to deny everything. She even had the nerve to claim that she was just trying to help me. But the evidence was irrefutable. She had intentionally tried to erase my baby from my life and from the family. She thought she could get away with it because of her position in the family, but she was wronged. Her conviction was inevitable, and she was sentenced to community service and had to undergo counseling for her manipulative behavior. I can't say I was happy about seeing her punished, but I wasn't about to let her destroy my family and my future with my son. It's been tough, and even though my mom is still trying to find ways to contact me, I've cut ties with her completely. She's no longer part of my life, and I have no intentions of letting her back in. My son is everything to me now, and I'm going to raise him in an environment where he's loved and supported, without any of the toxicity she tried to bring into our lives. It hasn't been easy adjusting to life without my mom. There are moments when I still question myself. Was I too harsh? Could I have tried to fix things? But deep down, I know I made the right decision. My son deserves better, and I deserve better. And no matter how much she tries to reach out, there's no going back. I've learned to rely on myself, and I've built a new family with my friends, people who truly care about me and my son. It's funny how the people you least expect end up being the ones who support you the most. My friends have been a rock for me, offering not only emotional support but also practical help when it comes to raising my son. But even though I've moved on and grown stronger, there's still a part of me that can't let go of the hurt she caused. It's hard to forget the things she said about me, about my ability to raise my son, about the way she treated me like I was disposable. She tore apart the bond we had, and I don't know if it will ever be possible to repair. The worst part? I had to do all of this on my own. Not only did I lose the relationship I once had with my mom, but I also had. In the weeks that followed, I focused on moving forward, building a life for myself and my son. Every day was a challenge, but it was a challenge I was willing to face. I became even more determined to protect my son, not just from the outside world, but from the toxic influences of the past. I wasn't going to let anyone take away the peace and love that I had worked so hard to create for him. But even as I stood strong, I couldn't ignore the nagging thoughts that occasionally crept into my mind. What if my mom had a change of heart? What if she realized how wrong she was? But then I would remind myself of everything she had done, how she had tried to erase my son from the picture, how she had undermined my ability to care for him, and most of all, how she had hurt me by betraying the very essence of motherhood. I couldn't let that go. I began to wonder if she was truly sorry, or if her apologies were just a way to manipulate me. When she reached out, pleading for forgiveness, it felt less like an apology and more like an attempt to save herself. She had crossed a line that couldn't be undone, and no amount of crying or begging could change the reality of what she had done. As time went on, I received more emails and messages from her. She apologized, but there was no sincerity in her words. It became clear to me that she wasn't apologizing for the right reasons. She wasn't sorry for what she had done to me. She was only sorry because she had gotten caught. And that realization made me even angrier. I continued with the lawsuit. I wasn't doing this out of spite, but out of necessity. I had to stand up for myself, for my son, and for the boundaries that had been crossed. My mother had made her choices, and now she had to face the consequences. The legal proceedings were ongoing, and every time I spoke to the lawyer, I felt a little more empowered. I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was defending the future I had fought so hard to create. As the legal process dragged on, I kept getting calls from family members, most of them trying to convince me to forgive my mother. My uncle, especially, kept telling me that I was being too harsh. "She raised you, he said. "She's your mother." But the truth was, she hadn't raised me the way a mother should. She had abandoned me emotionally long before all of this happened. And even if she had been there physically, it didn't matter. She had never really been there for me when it counted. I couldn't afford to let my emotions cloud my judgment. Yes, I had promised my father that I would take care of her. But at what cost? The promise I had made